Welcome to Finessing Hollywood, presented by Comedy Productions. I'm Ben Taylor, as Isaiah Taylor, where we're going to talk about the ins and outs of the Hollywood film and TV business as we see it, and how we're doing our best to break through and work around and make some money and take care of our families. We could just talk about you as an actor. Mm-hmm. How long have you been acting now?
I used the day I got my first paycheck for acting. It was $250 when I was age 9.
Wow.
So almost 20 years.
And the checks have gotten bigger or smaller?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So since 9, like consistently you've been acting?
No. So my origin story with acting is I was taking a hip hop class at the Millennium Dance Complex. I was by far the youngest little baby in there, and a scout came and saw, and I think was just so tickled at the idea of a 9-year-old learning a hip-hop routine, a candy shop, and, like, playing along with all of these teenagers and young adults, and asked me to come in and do a photo shoot, and saw my siblings and saw that we all were pretty much equally adorable and equally personable and not shy. So I signed with them, and it lasted maybe a year or two, and they dropped their children's division altogether. And I didn't pick it up again until high school. I took freshman year, I took my first drama class in high school, and I loved it. But unfortunately, at my school, theater was not cool. So I never auditioned for one show in high school. And then, so going into college, I thought, well, I've danced on the dance team. I've taken drama in high school. I've sung at church. Okay, I can do performing arts. I should at least try to go into college doing exactly what I want. So I applied to 5 schools, and for 4 of them, I applied under a performing arts, theater, and music major. And the one school I got into ended up cutting me halfway through the audition process when it came time to sing. And so I went to the school undeclared, took voice classes and dance classes and piano there, and did even some shows there that they let the non-majors do. And I had a great time, and it really reaffirmed that I did love it. And so it wasn't until my senior year of college that I got another on-camera gig, and it was just through word of mouth. Like, where I went to school, there were a lot of publicity and PR people wanting cute girls to be brand reps for different things, so they would come to, like, my sorority meetings and stuff and recruit us. So that's where it picked up again, and after graduating, I took it way more seriously. I did a theater full-time for the first year and a half, almost 2 years, as an adult.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Do you think, so that project, it wasn't like a student film thing. It was like a proper, you said it was like a ad-based something?
In college? Or
in college.
Yeah, it was, so one thing I did, I did yoga on like a grassy lawn for a Follow Fitness ad, which I don't know if the company still exists. And then the other was I modeled like skincare, like different kinds of face and hand and foot masks for a skincare company. And
so do you think you would have had the same opportunities like if you weren't in, because you went to school like in Southern California, right? So it's like LA area. Do you think you would have had the same opportunities for acting outside of school if it wasn't LA area, Southern California?
Yes, I do, because I didn't consider what I was doing acting. It felt like modeling, but with a talker. So really all that did is make me catch the bug for being on camera again.
Interesting.
Yeah, but theater exists everywhere. There are incredible theater productions in lots of states besides California, and I always tell, like, on my way over here, I told my Uber driver who has a daughter wanting to get into acting, the number one piece of advice I give is do theater first, because once you've done a hard play, you feel like you can do anything.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So is your goal as an actor, like, Like, is theater like a big part of that? Like your big picture goals with acting?
Theater is not necessarily a big part of it, but it is the part that I'm the biggest fan of. Mm-hmm. I recognize Broadway as something Olympic level, Broadway and West End in London. One doesn't just pick up swimming and do it every few months and call themselves an Olympic swimmer. Mm-hmm. Everyone performing on Broadway, it has been their lifestyle. They were bred for it from a very young age. Mm. They were heavily investing in building that skill set since they were children. And then even then, it's like a matter of navigating the Actors Equity unions there and getting the audition time. And even while they're auditioning, they're still taking lessons over and over again until they book the thing. And so as someone that has kind of like split my time up so much, I am not an Olympic level theater performer, unfortunately. But I would love to be someone that maintains it as long as I can, because it's, I like jokingly, but over time take it more seriously, that theater, plays specifically, are the actor's medium and camera work is more the director's medium.
Interesting.
So it's nice to just dabble in something that's truly my medium as much as I can.
Yeah, but you do like acting in front of the camera.
I do, and I'm much better at it.
Okay.
Yeah. I have a very, very transparent face, and and I am not afraid of being on camera. I feel like everyone, the biggest thing is they're so aware of it, like it's this like glaring eye in the room, and it was never really like that for me. I'm just not scared of it. I'm much more afraid of having real eyes and like an audience full of people. But it's interesting. It's like a different way of feeding into energy too. Like when you're on stage, your audience gives you your energy, so your show is only as good as the audience is invested into it. Whereas on camera, you kind of just get it from your scene partner. And if it's a scene where you're by yourself, it's really just kind of like I think it's you and your DP really having this kind of like dance together. And I really enjoy that. I just do better with the intimacy of it.
That's cool. So do you find yourself wanting to do one type of like video medium more than others, like commercial over TV, over film, over like, do you have any interest in like short films versus, I don't know, web content? You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like there's a handful of video medium. Do you have any preferences there?
I do. I've been very lucky to get to try so many. I've done an episode on a Snapchat series for E!
Wow.
That gave me a taste of a web series, and I've also done a pilot for a web series. And then I've done many short films, and then I've done music videos, and I've done feature films, and I hate music videos.
Why?
I would love to never step foot on a music video set again. And it's funny because that first paycheck I ever got when I was 9 was on a music video. So you would think I'd have this like heart for it, and I hate it. I don't like that they feel on a music video project that they need to get everything in that one day. So it ends up being like a 20-hour day. And so it's very much like a sprint, and I like the marathon. So because of that, I love something long. Like I like when I can sit on the same character for a long time. The longest I've sat on one character was for a feature film. And let's see, I started filming it in May, didn't technically wrap it until about January. So I got to really hang out with her for a while, and I loved that. It's nice, especially when it's someone that it's like a character you would have written for yourself anyway. It's like a bucket list kind of role. So to get to sit with her for a while is nice.
Do you do any writing?
I have. Yeah, so when I was graduating college, talking about doing acting, freaking out my household, they convinced me to apply to grad school, and I applied for producing. And part of producing applications is you submit basically like treatments of some original ideas of your own. And so during COVID lockdown, I was furloughed from work, and I'm cleaning out my computer, and I find 2 treatments that I wrote. And it's funny, it wasn't that long ago, but I just totally forgot about that whole process. So when I read them, I was so impressed at how good they were. I couldn't believe that I had that in me then. And I think it was just because I ended up declaring English. So I developed this imagination and breadth of language that I feel like it was like at its peak during that time that I wrote those treatments. So I decided just for fun to put them together and make them one story. And the next step after that was deciding, okay, well, what kind of story is this? And because I love reading, I loved it since around middle school, junior high, like 7th, 8th grade. I liked the idea of writing something for that girl. So I wrote it as a middle grade novel manuscript. That's my
so not as like a script for you to act in.
Not originally. The character I wrote to look like me, but it wasn't really under the idea of acting as her. It was more
really
so, yeah, it was more so just when I was in 7th grade, I would have loved to read about a girl doing those things that looked like me, because also it happens to be about a girl that does theater, and we've seen such an evolution of colorblind casting in theater to where I think the majority of top productions have cast a black girl in the last like 5 years, even for shows where it doesn't even match the like content. Like Anastasia is Russian, and right now is a black girl playing her on Broadway, which is great. But when I was in 7th grade, that was not a thing. So the idea of a girl that looked like me going on Broadway and playing a lead was a very foreign concept. So I wanted that in that story, and I wanted that to be on that cover for me to pick up and see.
Yeah. No, I totally get that. And I was asking really because you talked about, being able to play that one character in that feature, and it was really dope. One, because you got to sit in it long, but also it was someone that you felt like you would have written for yourself. So do you find that it's rare to find roles or to come across roles that feel like are fitting for you specifically?
Well, I had a conversation like this with another actress friend who is 50 and Thai recently and dyes her hair purple. And I told her I would like to be able to play someone green, orange, blue, an alien, someone that lives underground, someone that lives, anywhere. The whole idea is that I'm supposed to be a chameleon. So really the idea of finding things for someone like me is kind of limiting to me.
Interesting.
So the goal for me is to play any type of character with as much respect and having done as much research into what really their life would be like based on what they look like and what their experience in the world has done to them according to what they look like as I can. And if I do that properly, I will do justice whichever person in the real world best represents that person so that they will see it and believe it. But that's just part of the job.
So how much of that job is informed by the quality of the writing? Like, for example, as a writer, for whatever reason, I seem to be drawn towards writing women. Women as my main characters, women as the majority of my cast. I haven't necessarily gone through the gauntlet of a bunch of women reading my scripts and telling me that I should stop or not. But for whatever reason, I seem to be writing stories that way. But let's say that you were to read one of those scripts and you're reading this character that I think you can do interestingly, and let's say it's just not well written, or it's written as if a dude wrote a woman. Like, how does that inform your ability or your performance as an actor?
It happens all the time, where it's so much so that when I do read something written by a man and he's trying to do woman voice and he does it well, it makes me so excited. It just makes me wonder, like, who raised this boy?
Oh,
because it's
so you come
it's
across you come across scripts where you know it's a dude, but he did it well. Really, that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, not all the time, but often enough to where I believe it's possible. I don't really think right now I have enough perspective on the male experience to be able to write a male leading story. I know it's very hard, and I have a high regard for it, but I do come across a lot of scripts where men write very stereotypical women, and it's not that I won't audition for it or I'll shy away from it, but I'm not going to play it according to what they probably had in their brain. I'm going to play it in a way where I'm saying the words, but my intention and my subtext and my eyes are telling you something very different than what I might be saying.
Is there an example of sometime you did that you can think of? Because that's like a really interesting concept to me, especially when I think about some of the characters I've written or am writing, and just to think, like, how can someone use my words almost against me, like, in a different way?
Yeah. Well, one of the web series that I mentioned, I played the wife of a guy and the structure of this show is he does break the fourth wall and do little interview vignettes throughout the show about what's happening, and he just is a very free-spirited man and lives a whole life that the wife, myself, has no idea about. And they wanted to play a moment where I can hear his interviews, and he's talking about, like, taking his we're married, but we bring on a roommate who's actually the main character, and taking the new roommate out on all these fun adventures and meeting all these girls. And my line is to cut him off and say, be careful with the words that come out of your mouth next. And I read that and I was like, oh, see, they just want, like, a jealous, naggy wife. And I was so annoyed by it. So I kind of played it like I was in on their joke. Like, I'm aware and, like, almost have encouraged him to show him the realities of dating in this town that this guy has moved into. But I'm really teasing him. And I know that that's not what they wanted, but
were they
that's
happy
what
with
they
it?
got. They loved it.
Oh, they did?
They loved it.
That's really interesting. So for people out there that want to get into acting and they maybe have a concern about being typecasted or whatever, you think there's opportunities for people to take those roles and to, like, do something else that almost kind of turns it on its head? Like, do you think that's possible a lot of the time, most of the time? Like,
I think as long as you have done a lot of prep work on your own, so that by the time you arrive on set and actually execute it, you do it, like, on front foot and do it with a certain groundedness to where it seems like something that's added to the script that didn't exist prior, rather than something like, oh, I'm just going to try something different just to shake it up. I don't know if this actually fits the character, but something that's a little bit more intentional than that. Usually the people that are the deciders of the scene, like the director, or if the writer is on set or whoever, usually they're like, I didn't, and they like it. But it's just about the way you approach it. You can't approach it as if you didn't study why you're saying the words, and you're saying them wrong because you didn't study it. No,
that's interesting. There's, like, it's as if as an actor you're aware of story, right? You're aware of the character's role in the story, and even if you want to take it in a direction that wasn't necessarily intended or whatever, but you're still aware of, like, oh no, the story is going to be serviced by this style, this approach, this way that you're presenting. So is that something that you've always kind of been aware of, like as an actor, like the storytelling part of what you do?
No. That's something I probably learned in acting class because my first approaches to acting really they were very they weren't very like direct training. Like it was doing a background on set, so I learned about different ways to communicate with all the different crew members as the actor and how to figure out what the difference is in your performance in a shot based on whether it's a medium or a wide or a close-up. So like the logistics, the left brain of it. And then I learned about character work firstly from majoring in English and having to talk about characters in books in these like just very like high level classical canon literature, but in a way that made sense to me. I learned having to do that with canon made it a lot easier for me to do it with scripts made by screenwriters that are working to entertain rather than to like craft the minds of the future with, you know, the next great book. And so unfortunately, approaching it those two ways and having those as my foundations did not teach me a lot about story in the way that an actor, I think, needs to know about story. It really came from class and figuring out two things. One, like it is very important for you to like fill in and figure out everyone's relationship to each other and to you and your interpretation of people's relationship to one another. And two, figuring out like what the point of your character is, how he or she starts versus how she ends. And like I know of a lot of very successful name actors that actually make a point not to even read the parts of the script that their character isn't in because they're only concerned about getting that, like, the arc of their work done, and anything that the character wouldn't know, they don't need to know. I don't necessarily agree with that philosophy because I think, like, knowing as much about the world of the script as you can is better than not. But just in terms of story, that kind of thing really just, it comes out more in class. It's funny. It's like most starting actors think that you go to class to learn to perform and to put on the show, but really that just comes later. The class teaches you how to study and teaches you technique and gives you some tools to put in the box, and story work is one of the tools.
Interesting. Man, I wish we had more time to dive into some of those mechanics, because I think there's, and I want to say rightfully so, I think there's a desire for a lot of actors to put on a great performance, to look good, to look cool, to give something interesting for the screen. And all of those things are incredible. Like, we need that function, and we need the actor to be driven by what they're driven by. But you're always going to be enriched, I think, every department when it comes to film. And anyone who's considering film and you don't even know what you want to do yet, you still got to understand story. Story is king. Everything we're doing when it comes to crafting these projects, I think, is for story. And yeah, it's just really cool that you as an actor have been able to get to that place where you're aware of the story element as well as the performance, as well as what camera's doing for you, and how you can flip, stereotypes and all that. And that's just, it's really dope. I think that's cool.
Thank you.
This has been Finessing Hollywood, where we talked to Rachel about how she's been finessing Hollywood herself. She definitely will be back in the future because she's got a lot of cool nuggets and things to say as an actor. But for now, we gotta go. We are over our time.